One of my all-time favorite video game franchises is Kingdom Hearts, and anyone who's played it can usually see why it's so great within the first couple of minutes playing. When I first saw the commercial that showed Final Fantasy characters hanging out with Disney characters with Simple and Clean playing in the background, I practically lost my mind. Not only that, but it had original characters that took designs from both traditional Squaresoft and Disney favorites. It was amazing to see a game where the main character was friends with Donald, Goofy, Tidus, and Waka, but also seeing how both Squall and Maleficent were equally as important in the game's lore. The goal was to explore worlds like Traverse Town, which focused mainly on Final Fantasy characters, while also dedicating other worlds to Disney movies that you got to explore with a new Kingdom Hearts twist. Then, on October 5th, 2021, the entire world was completely blown away. The biggest fighting game of all time, and easily the most ambitious crossover of all time, announced that its final fighter would be Sora from Kingdom Hearts. This is significant for two reasons. First of all, Sora was the most requested character of all time to enter as a playable character in the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. With that kind of demand, it would be a no-brainer that he would be added to the roster, right? Well, this is what makes the addition so much more impressive, to the point where many thought that Sora's inclusion would be impossible. And even the director Masahiro Sakurai himself made references to how surprising it was that Sora got in. Kingdom Hearts, like Smash Ultimate, is a collaborative effort between different media companies, which in this case is Square Enix and Disney. Now, there were already 3 Square Enix characters on the roster, so why would anyone believe that Sora was a borderline impossibility? Well, the answer boils down to one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world, the Walt Disney Company. Now, before I delve too deep into the topic, I want to mention how big of an impact Disney has had on my family. I didn't just grow up watching Disney movies on the Disney Channel. Disney is practically instilled into my family's DNA. I know practically every line to every movie. I can tell you extremely specific details like Riley's birthday from Inside Out or who Max's mom is. I've been to Disneyland more times than you've been to the dentist. Even my dog is named after a Disney character. If I ever come across as overly critical of Mickey Mouse, just realize that this is a company that's played a role in my life that rivals that of my own grandparents. And I want to make sure that you know that this is really a video about my love-hate relationship with Disney. Oh, and by the way, Riley's birthday is January 22nd, and Max's mom is Mrs. Geef. Alright, so just so we get a good background, let's start at the very beginning. It all started with a guy named Walter Elias Disney who moved to Hollywood in 1923. There, he started making cartoons such as his first hit, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. That's about when Universal, yes, that Universal, told Walt that they owned the IP to his work as well as the animator's contracts, so good luck with your next project. It was at that point when Walt Disney swore that he would own everything that he made. And you know what? He had some pretty good successes. Sure, some of his employees didn't like that they were getting paid in IOUs and eventually left to start up the Warner Bros. Animation division. But it's hard to say that Disney didn't figure it out eventually. At the time, people didn't believe that anyone would ever sit down to watch an hour-and-a-half cartoon. But then Snow White came out and changed everything. From there, it was just a run of successes. Yes, there were some flops in there too, but people don't remember the failures. They remember the movies that left a mark. Pinocchio, Dumbo, Bambi, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, The Jungle Book, and these were just the movies that Walt worked on when he was still alive. Plus, he also made parks such as Disneyland, which is where he intended to live before cancer unfortunately took his life, and Disney World, which he only bought so that he could create an entire freaking city named Epcot. And you know what happened? Once Walt died, the Epcot project died along with him, as well as some of the magic that led to the company's success all this time. It wasn't until 1984 when Disney announced that Michael Eisner would be taking over as the new CEO of the company, and he would produce gems such as The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Mulan, Hercules, and The Lion King. He localized my favorite movie of all time, Kiki's Delivery Service. He worked with Steve Jobs and Pixar to bring us the first ever CGI movie, Toy Story. He introduced the Fast Pass at Disneyland. He's the person who ultimately approved the creation of Kingdom Hearts. Unfortunately, there is one caveat worth talking about. Remember when Disney swore that he would own everything that he made? Well, Michael Eisner decided to take that one step further. In February 1996, the Walt Disney Company formally acquired the American Broadcasting Company, which was also a major stakeholder in ESPN. Now, Disney had acquired things in the past, but they'd mostly just acquired themselves. Like in 1957, they bought out some of the guys who helped fund Disneyland, and in 1960, they bought out the rest. ABC, though, was a huge acquisition, and they didn't stop there. They bought the Muppets, Pixar, Hulu, Marvel, Lucasfilms, Maker Studio, National Geographic, 21st Century Fox. They even bought the fucking Digimon! Well, they bought Saban, who did the localization of Digimon, but the dub was way better than the original anyway. Fight me. Most of those acquisitions came under Bob Iger, arguably the worst Disney CEO in the history of the company. And it's under his leadership that changed Disney from the Imagination Factory to whatever this is. So obviously, Disney has bought out a lot of big companies, but just how big are they? Oh dear sweet Jiminy Crickets, is that the freaking Texas Longhorns? Not only that, but let's look at some of the television stations they own, which include local ABC channels in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Raleigh, Houston, Philadelphia, Fresno, and New York City. That might not seem like a big deal at first. If they own ABC, then of course they own the local channels too, right? That's not typically true, at least not in the way that you might be thinking. Most of the time, they own the rights to the name and allow local stations to run their own broadcasts and programs, especially when it comes to local news. When a company owns and operates its news stations, they can feed you whatever they want you to hear. They give you stories that push their own narrative, and in major metros like Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, that's freaking scary. Now, some of you might be rolling your eyes at that like, oh come on, they're not that bad. This is just what big businesses do. That's not mind control, it's just clever marketing.
It's nothing personal, Jack. It's just good business.
So, what happened? What changed between now and then? Well, Bob Iger is one big reason, but it also extends to so much more than that. For example, in 2006, when Disney bought Pixar, Ed Catmull, who was then the president of Pixar, became the president of Disney Studios Animation. So while we can thank him for gems like Encanto, Tangled, and Frozen, we can also thank him for Bolt, Frozen 2, and Lightyear. And this isn't even including the less than stellar movies that Pixar worked on like Turning Red. Personally, I respect Ed for some of the masterpieces that he's helped create, especially movies like Coco and Inside Out. However, he also talks in his book Creativity Inc. about how he's encouraged his team to stop thinking about what Walt would have done and to evolve with the times. You're probably not going to see Disney make movies like The Little Mermaid anymore. The instant classics are gone along with ESPN Classic. Yes, I'm still bitter about that, don't remind me. Instead, you're going to see movies catered to a new audience. 2D animation isn't coming back, and this is just something that we're all going to have to get used to. Now, should I talk about Marvel and Star Wars? You know what, I'll talk about Marvel for a second. I'm pretty sure we're all thinking the same thing when it comes to Star Wars. So the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe is extremely interconnected within the comics, and there's way more superheroes in the comics than what we see on the big screen. That being said though, comics and movies are completely different industries. Comics were always a niche industry, whereas movies were meant to be viewed by everybody. Comics could be crunched out once or twice a month, maybe even more, but movies take years to develop. There were people who weren't even born when the first Iron Man movie came out who are now teenagers. At first, we were all excited for the Avengers movie, and I think most of us were even hoping for more. Then more movies came out that focused on new superheroes, and then the superhero movies got combined with other superhero movies, and then the superheroes beat the bad guys, and then they're still going. For crying out loud, Jeremy Renner is 50 years old now. Who are they even catering to anymore? My grandpa? And you're charging people $8 a month to watch it? Oh dear. Let me get into my final thoughts here. So the Walt Disney Company is nothing like it used to be, and that's a direction that the company has made consciously. Rather than just owning their own IPs, they try to buy basically every media company in the world while simultaneously extending copyright laws to 70 years after the death of the author. The studio that brought us our favorite movies and the happiest place on earth are now looking to expand their markets, products, and influences as much as they can. Again, that's just what businesses do. And when you've got a company as big as the Walt Disney Company, you might start to think, at what point does this become a monopoly? Now, you might like Hawkeye or Turning Red or the tragedy that ESPN has become. You might like how Disneyland is starting to introduce more Marvel and Star Wars to their parks while completely shafting Kingdom Hearts. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I guess I just miss some of the magic that I grew up with. I miss that little big company that came out with 2D cartoons. I miss the Disneyland that cared more about imagination than appealing to a broader audience with lots of different IPs. I miss when superhero movies could exist on their own rather than within some larger cinematic universe. Heck, I miss when ESPN was good. I guess I just have this to say to the Walt Disney Company. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a fun childhood. Thank you for my memories at Disneyland. Thank you for inspiring me year after year with movies I knew I could look forward to. Thank you for Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. And most importantly, thank you for Sora. As both a Kingdom Hearts fan and a Super Smash Bros. Fan, seeing him added as the last character made me happier than you'll ever know. However, as the Walt Disney Company continues to evolve, I see myself becoming less and less interested with its direction in general. I'm not Peter Pan, and at some point, it's time for me to grow up. Again, thank you for the memories, but I'm sad to see the company that I loved turn into a conglomerate that no longer fills me with magic. So, what do you think? Do you like the new Disney or the old Disney better? Do you like the new Spider-Man movies more than the Tobey Maguire ones? How do you feel about Disney overall? Leave a comment to let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.